At the family dinner that night, I thought it would be nothing more than another Sunday gathering. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, my uncle's bad jokes, and my dad bragging about quarterly profits. The chandelier buzzed faintly. The lemon candles Mom always loved flickered on the table, and the air smelled like garlic bread and red wine. I was scrolling through my phone under the table when my dad suddenly tapped his spoon against his glass. Ting, ting, ting. The room quieted. My mom beamed like a hostess unveiling the grand finale, and then my dad, in his proud, booming voice, declared, "We are thrilled to announce our daughter's engagement to Daniel Carter, the son of our business partner." The applause erupted instantly. My aunt gasped, my cousins clapped, someone shouted, "Congratulations!" Like this was news we'd all been waiting for. But me, I froze. The fork slipped from my fingers and clattered against the plate. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear the chatter. Engaged? To who? The name meant nothing. Daniel Carter. I didn't even know his face, let alone his laugh, his kindness, his flaws. My mom leaned close, her perfume sweet but suffocating, whispering, "Don't be shy, sweetheart. Smile." My lips trembled into something that might have looked like a smile to them, but inside, I was screaming. You ever have that moment when your entire life gets rewritten in one sentence and you didn't even get a pen? That was me, under that chandelier, with everyone's eyes on me. Dad went on, talking about a perfect union, a partnership between families, stability for the future. His words sounded less like a father celebrating his daughter's happiness, and more like a CEO finalizing a merger. My stomach turned. I wanted to shout, "I'm not part of your deal," but my voice caught in my throat. Instead, I just stared at my plate, the gravy thickening around the potatoes, the green beans cooling on porcelain, while my life was bartered like a business transaction. Grandma broke the tension, her voice sharp as ever. "Do you even know this boy, love?" The whole table hushed, eyes swinging back to me. I swallowed hard. "No," I whispered. "I don't." Awkward laughter filled the air. My father chuckled like I was being coy. "That's what engagements are for," he said, patting my shoulder with a heavy hand. "You'll get to know him. You'll thank us later." "Thank them? For auctioning off my future?" My mother chimed in, her tone softer but still firm. "You always said you wanted a partner who values family. Daniel is steady, respectful, old-school values. This is perfect for you." Except I never said that. What I wanted was love. What I wanted was choice. And the truth? My parents never gave me much of that. Growing up, my life had been mapped like a business plan. When I was 8, they signed me up for piano lessons I hated. When I was 13, they ended my first crush with a single sentence, "He doesn't fit our family." When I was 17, they chose colleges for me, taping brochures to the fridge, crossing out the ones that weren't aligned with the family name. Every step, every milestone, they had curated. And I learned to smile, nod, and push my own dreams into secret corners of my journal. Sitting at that table now, I felt like the final deal had been struck. Me, the daughter, was just another line item. But something inside me cracked that night. As the toasts carried on and my relatives raised glasses, as my aunt whispered about dresses and my cousins argued about flowers, I stared at the chandelier's golden light bouncing off the wine glasses and made myself a silent vow. I would meet this Daniel. I would hear who he was, but I would not, absolutely would not, go quietly into the future my parents had scripted. Because this wasn't just an engagement. This was a test. And if their answers sounded like contracts instead of vows, I'd rather break the announcement than break myself. After the plates were cleared and the relatives finally shuffled out the door with leftover containers and half-empty wine bottles, the house felt heavier than ever. The laughter, the clapping, the congratulations still echoed in my ears like a cruel joke. I sat on the couch, staring at the flickering candle Mom forgot to blow out, when my dad walked in with that same satisfied grin plastered across his face. "You handled that well," he said, loosening his tie like he'd just closed a major deal. "The Carters will be pleased." I blinked at him, heat rising in my chest. "Pleased? You announced my engagement to a man I don't even know. You didn't ask me, you didn't tell me, you blindsided me." He waved his hand dismissively, like swatting away a mosquito. "Don't be dramatic. This is what families do. We look out for each other. We build alliances. You'll learn to appreciate it. I stood, crossing my arms. Alliances? Dad, I'm not a merger. I'm not a contract. My voice cracked, but I held his gaze. Mom appeared in the doorway then, her heels clicking softly against the hardwood. She tried to smooth things over the way she always did. Sweetheart, we only want what's best for you. Daniel comes from a good family. He's stable, hardworking, respectful. Real love grows in stability. I laughed bitterly. Real love? You're talking about a man I haven't even met. How can you promise me real love when you don't even know if he's kind? Dad's jaw tightened. He leaned in, lowering his voice into that sharp tone that always made me feel like a child. You've always been too idealistic. Love, kindness, those are luxuries. What matters is security, position, family honor. And Daniel will give you all of that. My chest ached with anger, but behind it, a pang of sadness. Because deep down, I realized this wasn't about me at all. It never had been. This was about their reputation, their business, their need to control every piece of the puzzle. I thought back to every time I tried to carve out my own path, taking art classes when they wanted business electives, working part-time at the bookstore because I loved the smell of paper and ink, not because it looked good on a resume. Each time, they found a way to remind me that my choices weren't really mine. And now, this was the ultimate reminder. Even my marriage wasn't my decision. What if I say no? I whispered, the words trembling in the air. My dad's eyes narrowed. Then you'd embarrass this family. You'd humiliate us in front of the Carters. Do you really want to carry that weight? Mom placed a gentle hand on my arm, her voice softer but just as suffocating. Please don't fight us on this. You'll thank us later, I promise. Thank them. For stealing my voice? For selling my future? I pulled my arm away and stormed upstairs, my hands shaking as I closed the bedroom door behind me. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, my flushed cheeks, my tear-streaked face, and wondered how much of me was even mine anymore. The next morning, over coffee, my dad laid out the plan like an agenda item. Dinner with the Carters this Saturday, 6 o'clock sharp. Wear something appropriate. We'll make introductions, formalize things. Keep it polite. Smile. I gripped my mug, the bitter coffee burning my tongue. So that's it? My whole life decided over one dinner? He looked at me calmly, as if he were explaining market shares. It's not about you. It's about the family. You're part of something bigger. Your duty comes first. My stomach churned at the word duty. Duty had been their favorite word since I was old enough to tie my shoes. Duty to study hard. Duty to represent the family. Duty to behave properly. And now duty to marry a stranger. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But instead, I just nodded slowly, because I knew fighting head-on would only push them further into control. If I wanted a way out, I had to be smarter. I had to see this Daniel for myself, to hear from his own mouth who he was, what he wanted. Maybe then I could find the crack in their perfect plan. That night, I texted my best friend Maya. They've set me up. Dinner with the guy this weekend. What do I do? She replied instantly, you go. You listen. And you figure out exactly what game they're playing. Then we make a plan. I smiled faintly at the screen, the first flicker of relief I'd felt in days. Because if my parents thought they could script my life without my say, they were about to find out I wasn't just a line item in their ledger. I was ready to ask my own questions. And if I didn't like the answers, well, I was ready to write my own ending. Saturday evening came faster than I wanted. I stood in front of my closet for nearly an hour, staring at clothes that suddenly felt like costumes, each dress a disguise, each shoe a step deeper into someone else's script. Finally, I settled on a navy blue dress, simple but respectable, something that said polite without screaming eager. Mom knocked on my door before we left, her eyes lighting up. Perfect, she said, smoothing a wrinkle that wasn't there. You'll make a wonderful impression. Her words stung. Impression. That was all I was to them, a product to be displayed. The Carter house loomed at the end of Maple Street, a massive stone mansion with columns that looked like they'd been stolen from a courthouse. The driveway sparkled with high-end cars, and the front door opened to a grand foyer lit by a chandelier so big it could crush someone if it fell. I clutched my purse tighter, the smell of polished wood and expensive cologne making my stomach churn. Ah, welcome, Mr. Carter boomed, shaking my dad's hand like they were sealing a $1 billion contract. His wife hugged my mom with rehearsed warmth, her diamonds catching the light. And then Daniel. He walked down the staircase like he'd been waiting for his cue. Tall, sharp suit, hair slicked back just so. He smiled at me, but it didn't reach his eyes. It was the smile of someone who'd practiced in the mirror, who knew how to charm a boardroom but not a human heart. "So," he said, extending his hand, "we finally meet." I shook it, my palm clammy, his grip firm and businesslike. It felt less like a greeting and more like a deal being struck. Dinner was served in a dining room so pristine I was afraid to breathe. Crystal glasses, silver utensils polished to a mirror shine. Filet mignon cooked perfectly medium rare. Small talk filled the air. Stock markets, expansion plans, upcoming charity galas. Not once did anyone ask me about my job, my hobbies, my life. I might as well have been invisible until Daniel finally leaned in. "So," he said quietly, his tone flat, "I know this isn't what you wanted." My heart skipped. "Excuse me?" He sipped his wine unfazed. "This isn't about you. Or me, really. It's about them." He gestured subtly toward our parents, who were laughing at some story about golf. "They want security, reputation, expansion. We're just part of the package." His bluntness made my throat tighten. "So what? You don't care either way?" He shrugged. "I don't mind. I get what I want. You get stability. They get their deal. Everyone wins." His words were calm, like he was explaining the weather. "And what about love?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. He smirked, finally letting a hint of arrogance show. "Love is optional. Love complicates things. Arrangements like this, they're clean, efficient, and honestly, you should be grateful. Not every girl gets this kind of opportunity." Heat surged in my face. Grateful? For being handed over like a signature on a dotted line. I clenched my hands in my lap, fighting the urge to throw my wine in his smug face. Instead, I asked, "Do you even want to marry me?" He leaned back, his smirk widening. "Want has nothing to do with it. I'll play my role. You play yours. That's all they expect." And then, like he was twisting the knife, he added, "Besides, I already have someone, but she understands the arrangement. She knows where she stands." The words crashed over me like ice water. Someone else? He was already in a relationship, and this farce of an engagement was just a box for him to check. My chest tightened, my breath shallow. "So you're saying I'm supposed to smile, marry you, and pretend while you live your real life with her?" He didn't even flinch. "You catch on quick." Rage boiled in me, but before I could answer, Mrs. Carter raised her glass for a toast. "To the future," she chirped. Everyone clinked glasses, smiling like we were in a commercial for perfect families. I lifted mine with shaking hands, my mind screaming. After dessert, chocolate soufflé dusted with sugar, I excused myself to the bathroom, locking the door and gripping the sink until my knuckles turned white. My reflection stared back at me, eyes wide, cheeks flushed, a girl trapped in a cage built of chandeliers and contracts. My phone buzzed. Maya's text lit the screen. "How's it going?" I typed furiously. "He doesn't love me. He has someone else. This is all business." She replied instantly, "Then you can use that. Information is power. Don't let them corner you." I stared at her words, the seed of a plan sparking in my chest. If Daniel thought I'd play along, if my parents thought I'd bow my head, they were in for a surprise. Because I wasn't just a pawn, and I wasn't about to let them decide the rest of my life. Not without a fight. The engagement party wasn't supposed to be mine. It was theirs. That's what I kept telling myself as I slipped into the cream-colored dress my mom picked out. My hair pinned up in curls I didn't even like. My lips painted with a shade she called timeless. I looked in the mirror and saw not myself, but the version of me my parents wanted to present to the world. Polished, agreeable, silent. The ballroom was already full when we arrived. Golden chandeliers spilled light over round tables draped in white cloth. Centerpieces of roses and lilies arranged with precision. Waiters glided between guests carrying trays of champagne, and a string quartet played softly near the stage. People turned their heads as we walked in, smiling, whispering, congratulating as though this was a fairy tale. My stomach twisted. Daniel stood near the stage, flawless in his tuxedo, smiling the same practiced smile he'd given me days before. Our eyes met, and he gave me a subtle nod, a reminder of the roles we were supposed to play tonight. But I wasn't here to play. I was here to end it. As the evening unfolded, speeches filled the room. My father took the microphone, his voice booming with pride. Tonight we celebrate not only love but unity between two families. This partnership ensures a prosperous future, and we couldn't be happier to welcome Daniel into our lives. Applause thundered. My mother dabbed her eyes with a napkin, pretending to be emotional. Mr. Carter stood next, praising the bright future we represented, and then it was Daniel's turn. He spoke smoothly, thanking our families, talking about honor, tradition, and commitment. Every word was a performance, a lie wrapped in charm. And then the spotlight turned to me. "Say a few words," my father urged, handing me the microphone. My hands trembled as I took it. I scanned the room, rows of smiling faces, glasses raised, phones recording. This was my moment, my chance. I drew in a deep breath. "Thank you all for being here," I began, my voice steady though my heart raced. This is supposed to be a celebration of love, of commitment. But I need to be honest with you. With all of you. Murmurs rippled across the room. My father's smile faltered. My mother's hand clenched the tablecloth. I didn't know about this engagement until the night it was announced at our dinner table. I wasn't asked. I wasn't given a choice. I was told. The room gasped. My father's face reddened, his mouth opening to interrupt, but I lifted my hand to silence him. And tonight I can't stand here and smile as if this is what I want. Because it's not. The air thickened, tension wrapping around every chair. I turned toward Daniel, whose confident mask was beginning to crack. "And as for you," I said, my voice sharper now, "maybe you should tell everyone here about the woman you've been seeing while agreeing to this engagement." Gasps exploded. Phones lifted higher, recording every second. Daniel's face drained of color. "That's not," he stammered, but I cut him off. "I saw the messages. The photos. You told me she understands the arrangement. Do you think these people will understand?" Chaos erupted. Guests whispered fiercely, some standing, some gasping audibly. Mr. Carter slammed his fist against the table, shouting Daniel's name. My father barked, "Enough! Sit down!" But I didn't. I held the microphone tighter. "No, I won't sit down. I won't be sold like a contract. I won't marry a stranger to save your business deals. I deserve better, and I won't apologize for saying it." My voice shook, but it carried. The quartet had stopped playing. The waiters stood frozen, holding trays mid-air, and in the silence that followed, my words hung heavy, undeniable. Daniel tried to recover, laughing nervously. "She's emotional. Weddings bring pressure." But before he could finish, his phone buzzed loudly on the table. The screen lit up with a name, Sophie. The guests saw it. Someone gasped. My grandmother, sitting in the front row, leaned back with a satisfied nod, as if she'd known this was coming all along. My father's face turned crimson. He lunged toward me, hissing, "Do you know what you've done? You've humiliated this family." I met his gaze, for once unflinching. "No, you did that when you decided my life was yours to trade." The room erupted again, guests shouting, some leaving, others recording with wide eyes. My mother covered her face, tears streaking her makeup. Daniel stormed off, his parents chasing after him, their empire of polished lies crumbling in front of everyone. I set the microphone down on the table, my hands trembling, but my spine straight. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. But freedom wasn't the end. Freedom came with consequences. And as I walked out of that ballroom under 100 staring eyes, I knew the real battle was only beginning. The silence in our car on the way home was heavier than any scream. My father's hands gripped the steering wheel so tight I thought it might snap. My mother dabbed her smeared mascara with a tissue, staring out the window as if she could disappear into the dark suburbs rushing by. I sat in the back seat, my heart still pounding from the spotlight, the stares, the gasps. And yet, underneath the fear, was relief. I had spoken. I had told the truth, and there was no going back. When we pulled into the driveway, Dad finally exploded. "Do you have any idea what you've done? You've ruined us. You've humiliated this family in front of everyone that matters." His voice thundered against the car roof. I met his eyes in the rearview mirror. "No, I saved myself. That's something you were never going to do for me." He slammed the door when he got out, stomping into the house. Mom lingered in the driveway, her shoulders slumped, her voice soft. "Why couldn't you just go along with it? Why couldn't you make it easier?" Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Because it was my life. And it never felt like mine until tonight. She didn't answer. She just turned and followed him inside. That night, I lay awake in my room, the echo of whispers and applause still swirling in my head. Shame tried to creep in, but I pushed it out. Instead, I thought about Maya's words, "Information is power." And I realized I had finally taken mine back. The fallout came quickly. News of the disastrous engagement spread like wildfire through our community. Videos from the party circulated, me holding the microphone, Daniel's phone lighting up with Sophie, my father's red face. By Monday morning, whispers had turned to headlines on local blogs, business alliance shattered after engagement scandal. My father stormed around the house, yelling about lost deals, betrayed partners, lawyers. For once, the empire he had built on control and appearances was crumbling, and he couldn't stop it. My mother withdrew, avoiding me, her eyes swollen from crying. My brother texted me privately. "I can't believe you did that." But maybe you had to. It was the closest thing to support I'd ever gotten from him. And me, I packed. By the end of the week, I had moved into a small apartment across town. It wasn't much, just one bedroom, a leaky faucet, a view of the alley instead of a garden, but it was mine. The first night there, I sat cross-legged on the floor with takeout pizza, no chandeliers, no crystal glasses, no suffocating expectations. Just me, free for the first time in my life. Grandma visited the next weekend, carrying a tin of cookies and that knowing smile. "I'm proud of you," she said simply, placing a kiss on my forehead. "It takes courage to walk away." I hugged her tight, the kind of hug that feels like home. For weeks, my parents didn't speak to me. When they finally did, it was through terse phone calls, Dad furious about money, Mom begging me to reconsider, to fix things, but there was nothing to fix. Daniel had vanished into his own scandal, his Sophie plastered all over social media. The Carters cut ties, furious and humiliated. And my parents? They were left standing in the wreckage of a deal they tried to build on my back. Did it hurt to be cut off? Yes. Did I cry some nights, wondering if I had destroyed my family? Yes. But every morning when I woke up in my own bed, brewed coffee in my chipped mug, and watched the sunlight spill across my tiny kitchen table, I knew I had chosen right. Because freedom, even messy, even lonely, was better than a cage lined with roses. Months later, I walked into the bookstore where I'd always loved working part-time, and the manager smiled. "We've got an opening. You want more hours?" I said yes. I stacked books. I helped kids find stories. I lost myself in the smell of ink and paper. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't rich, but it was honest. And every night when I closed the register, I whispered a silent promise to myself. Never again would I let someone else write my story. One evening, sitting on my balcony with a cup of tea, the city humming below, I thought about that family dinner, the chandelier, the applause. And I realized something important. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is disappoint the people who never saw you in the first place. My parents thought announcing my engagement without asking was a victory, but it was the moment I finally found my voice. And here's the aftertaste of it all, the part I want you to remember. If someone ever tries to trade your future like it's their property, you don't have to stay silent. You can stand up, you can walk out, you can rewrite the script. Because that night, under the weight of everyone's expectations, I said no. And that no turned out to be the first real yes of my life.